Captain June Kim stood at the main window of his ship, the Vigilant Scout. His dark eyes were fixed on the screen showing a large white ship floating in space. This ship, called the Mercy's Hand, was special. It was a hospital ship that helped sick and hurt people. The Mercy's Hand had big red symbols on its sides. These symbols told everyone that this was a medical ship. It also sent out special signals that all space travelers knew meant medical help. The ship was on its way to help people on Proxima 4, a planet where many people were hurt in a war. June ran his hand through his short black hair and sighed. He had been watching the hospital ship for 3 hours now. His own ship was hidden, using special technology that made it hard to see on radar. "Captain, there's movement," said Lieutenant Sue Park. She sat at her control panel, her fingers moving quickly over the screens. "Raktar ships are coming this way." The Raktar were tall aliens with tough skin like armor. They had been fighting with humans for the last 5 years. They wanted to take over human planets near their space. "They see the hospital ship?" June asked, his voice tight. "Yes, sir. The hospital ship is sending the medical signals. The Raktar ship should know what it is." June nodded. Even in war, there were rules. Nobody attacked medical ships. It was a rule followed by all space travelers for hundreds of years. On the screen, 5 Raktar ships moved closer to the Mercy's Hand. They made a circle around it. "Sir, the Raktar ships are scanning the hospital ship," said Officer Taekwon. His young face looked worried. "The hospital ship is sending them messages. They're explaining their mission to help the hurt people on Proxima 4. The room was quiet. Everyone on the bridge watched the screen. The Vigilant Scout was too small to help if something happened. They were only here to watch and report back to Earth. Suddenly, Officer Kwon shouted, "Captain, the Raktar ships are powering up their weapons." "That can't be right," June said. He moved closer to the screen. "They can see it's a hospital ship. Send them a message." Before he could finish, bright green beams shot out from all 5 Raktar ships. The beams hit the Mercy's Hand at the same time. The white hospital ship shook. Then more beams hit it. Parts of the ship broke off. Fires started where the beams hit. "No!" Sue Park shouted. Her hands covered her mouth. June couldn't speak. He watched as the Raktar ships fired again and again. The Mercy's Hand didn't have strong shields or weapons. It wasn't made for fighting, it was made to help people. After 2 minutes, the Raktar ship stopped firing. The Mercy's Hand was now just broken pieces floating in space. Small fires burned until they ran out of air. "Life signs?" June asked, his voice barely a whisper. Officer Kwon checked his screen for a long time. Then he looked up, his face pale. "None, sir. 512 people were on that ship. Doctors, nurses, patients. They're all gone." June's hands closed into tight fists. His whole body felt cold with shock, then hot with anger. "Record everything," he ordered. "Every second from every angle. Use all our cameras. I want to see the Raktar ships clearly. I want to see their markings. I want proof of exactly what happened here." "Yes, sir," Sue said. Her voice shook as she worked. The Raktar ships moved, away from the broken hospital ship. They didn't even stop to look for survivors. They knew there wouldn't be any. "Set course for Earth," June said. "Maximum speed. Use the stealth systems. I don't want the Raktar to know we saw what they did." As the Vigilant Scout turned away, June took one last look at the floating pieces of the Mercy's Hand. He had seen bad things in the war before, but this was different. The Raktar had broken the most important rule of space travel. They had killed people who were only trying to help others. Later that night, in his small room on the ship, June recorded his private thoughts. "Today I saw the Raktar destroy the hospital ship Mercy's Hand. 512 innocent people are dead. For years humans have tried to be fair in this war. We've followed the rules, we've shown mercy, but the Raktar see this as weakness." He paused, thinking about the families who would soon learn their loved ones were gone. "Earth has been fighting this war carefully, holding back our full strength. But after today, that will change. The Raktar think they know what humans are capable of. They're wrong." June closed his log and sat in the dark. The Vigilant Scout raced through space toward Earth. They carried with them proof of a terrible crime. And soon, Earth would answer. 3 days later, the Vigilant Scout reached Earth space. As they approached the massive space station that served As Earth's military headquarters, June saw that many ships were gathered there, more than he had ever seen before. "Sir," Supark said, "we're being called directly to the main command center. They want our recordings right away." June nodded. They already know. The news had traveled faster than their ship, and Earth was already preparing its answer. When June walked into the large command center, Admiral Day Lee was waiting. Her face was serious as she watched the recordings from the Vigilant Scout. "Captain Kim," she said, "thank you for bringing this evidence. Now we know exactly what happened." "What will happen next, Admiral?" June asked. Admiral Lee looked at him. Her eyes were hard and determined. "They fired on a hospital ship," she said. "So Earth will answer with a fleet of fury." Admiral Day Lee stood tall in the large meeting room. On the wall, a big screen showed the broken pieces of the hospital ship Mercy's Hand. 12 men and women sat around a long table. They were the United Earth Defense Council, the most powerful, leaders who protected Earth and its colonies. Admiral Lee pointed to the screen. "The video from Captain Kim's ship shows everything clearly. The Raktar ship saw the medical symbols. They got the medical signals. They knew it was a hospital ship." Defense Secretary Han, an older man with gray hair, shook his head sadly. "And what do the Raktar say about this?" "They claim it was a trick," Admiral Lee said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed her anger. "They say we put weapons on the hospital ship, that we were using it to spy on them." "That's a lie," said General Yoon. He hit the table with his hand. "We have the ship's records. It was carrying only doctors, nurses, and medical supplies." President Jin, a thin woman with short hair, stood up. Everyone got quiet. She walked to the screen and looked at the broken ship. "How many people died?" she asked softly. 512, Admiral Lee answered. 300 medical staff and 212 patients who were being moved to a safer place. The room was silent. Each person thought about all those lives lost. "What do you suggest we do, Admiral?" President Jin finally asked. Admiral Lee touched a button and the screen changed. Now it showed a group of powerful Earth ships. "The Raktar think we are weak," she said. "For years we have tried to end this war with talks. We have followed the rules of war. We have shown mercy when we could. The Raktar see this as weakness." She looked at each person in the room. "I suggest Operation Fury. We use the Fifth Fleet to strike hard at the Raktar." There were sounds of surprise around the table. The Fifth Fleet was Earth's strongest battle group. It had the newest ships, the best weapons, and the most trained soldiers. "The Fifth Fleet?" General Yoon asked. "That would mean—" "Yes," Admiral Lee nodded. "It would mean showing the Raktar our real strength. We have been careful in this war. We have not used our best technology. The Raktar think they know what we can do. They don't." President Jin walked back to her seat. "If we do this, there is no going back. This will change the war." "The war already changed when they fired on our hospital ship," Admiral Lee said. "Now we must respond." Defense Secretary Han looked worried. "What exactly are you planning, Admiral?" Admiral Lee touched the screen again. Now it showed a map of Raktar space. A direct attack on their home system, not to destroy them, but to show them our true power, to make them understand what happens when they break the rules of war. The council members looked at each other. This was a big decision. "We will vote," President Jin said. She looked at each person. "All in favor of Operation Fury, raise your hand." One by one, hands went up. In the end, all 12 members voted yes. President Jin stood again. "Admiral Lee, you have the council's approval. Prepare the Fifth Fleet." The next morning, Admiral Lee stood in the giant hangar of Earth Space Station 1. In front of her, 5,000 soldiers stood in straight lines. They were about to board the ships of the Fifth Fleet. "Men and women of Earth," Admiral Lee's voice carried to every corner of the hangar. "You have seen the videos. You know what happened to the Mercy's Hand. Today we answer that crime." The soldiers stood very still, listening. For too long the Raktar have mistaken our desire for peace as fear. They have mistaken our mercy as weakness. Today they will learn the truth. Admiral Lee walked along the front line of soldiers. The people on the Mercy's hand were not warriors. They were healers. They were there to help the hurt and sick. The Raktar killed them because they thought we would do nothing. She stopped and looked at the faces of her soldiers. We are not going for revenge. Revenge is about anger. We are going for justice. Justice is about what is right. The Raktar must learn that some lines cannot be crossed, that humanity will defend its values. On the far side of the hangar, a group of people in white medical uniforms stood together. They were doctors and nurses from the same medical group as those who died on the Mercy's hand. They had volunteered to come on this mission. Admiral Lee nodded to them. We go to fight, but we also go to show who we really are. We will bring doctors to heal, even as we bring soldiers to fight. That is humanity's strength. She turned back to the soldiers. Board your ships. Prepare for departure. As the soldiers moved to their ships, Admiral Lee met with her top officers in a small room off the hangar. Captain Rai, your ship will lead the attack, she said to a tall woman with a serious face. Yes, Admiral. Captain Ri nodded. The retribution is ready. Captain Beck, your troops will be the first to land if needed, Admiral Lee said to a strong-looking man. The 82nd Combat Drop Regiment is prepared, Captain Beck replied. Admiral Lee looked at a map on the wall. The Raktar don't know we're coming. They don't know what we can really do. Today, that changes. Later that day, the ships of the Fifth Fleet left Earth one by one. The Retribution, a massive battlecruiser, went first. Then came the Indomitable, a carrier filled with small, fast fighter ships. 10 more large warships followed. Last came 3 hospital ships, smaller than the others but still well protected. From the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Lee watched Earth get smaller behind them. Set course for the Raktar home system, she ordered. Maximum speed. The ship's engines glowed bright blue. Then, in flashes of light, they disappeared into faster-than-light travel. The fleet of Fury was on its way, and the Raktar had no idea what was coming. Captain Juan stood on the bridge of the Retribution, Earth's largest warship. Through the wide front window, he could see only the strange, shifting lights of faster-than-light travel. The ship, along with the rest of the Fifth Fleet, was rushing toward Raktar space. How much longer? He asked. 6 hours until we reach the Raktar home system, answered Officer Sun, a young woman with short black hair. Captain Juan nodded. 6 more hours to prepare. 6 more hours before they showed the Raktar what humans were truly capable of. He turned to Admiral Lee, who sat in the command chair. Admiral, should I tell the crew to rest while they can? Admiral Lee shook her head. No, I want everyone ready. Check all systems again. Make sure all weapons are at full power. The Admiral stood up and walked to the large map table in the center of the bridge. It showed the Raktar home system, one yellow star with 7 planets around it. The Raktar lived on the 3rd planet, a world much like Earth. The Raktar think they know us, she said quietly. They think they've seen our best ships, our strongest weapons. They haven't. Captain Juan looked at the map. They have many defense stations around their planet. Yes, but they've never faced ships like ours before. Admiral Lee touched the map, and it zoomed in to show the Raktar planet. We will give them one chance to surrender, to admit what they did and face justice. If they refuse. She didn't finish the sentence. On the ship Indomitable, the fighter pilots were checking. Their small, fast ships. These fighters were special. They had technology the Raktar had never seen before. Pilot Bo Ra sat in her fighter, running through the systems check. Shields at full power, stealth system ready, weapons charged, she said into her helmet mic. Next, to her fighter, Pilot Du Moon was doing the same. I still can't believe they attacked a hospital ship, he said. Bo nodded. My sister was a nurse on a hospital ship like that one. Not the Mercy's hand, but similar. It could have been her. That's why we're here, Du said. To make sure it never happens again. Their commander, a tall woman named Gil Su, walked over to them. All checks complete? Yes, Commander, both pilots said. Commander Gill looked around the large hangar. 50 fighters were lined up, ready to launch when needed. The Raktar have never seen fighters like these. They think their ships are faster and more maneuverable than ours. Today they learn differently. In another part of the Retribution, soldiers of the 82nd Combat Drop Regiment were preparing their power armor. These special suits made them stronger and faster, and protected them from most weapons. Colonel Min Yu checked his armor one last time. He was a veteran of many battles against the Raktar. He had seen their strength. Their natural armor made them tough opponents. But he had never used power armor like this against them before. "Not taking chances this time, are we?" asked Sergeant Yun Choi, Min's old friend. "No," Min replied. "No more holding back. The Council has authorized all our advanced technology for this mission." Yun looked surprised. "All of it? Even the phase shift devices?" Min nodded. "Even those." The Raktar crossed a line. Now they see what we can really do. Around them, 200 soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They were quiet, focused on the job ahead. "You've fought the Raktar before," Yun said. "How do you think they'll react when they see what we can really do?" Min thought for a moment. "First, they won't believe it. They think they know our limits, then they'll be afraid. And then hopefully they'll be ready to talk peace." On one of the hospital ships following the fleet, Dr. Yuna was organizing medical supplies. Unlike the warships, these vessels carried no weapons. They were there to help the wounded, both human and Raktar. "More bandages in surgery room 3, she told a nurse, "and make sure all the blood supplies are ready." Dr. Yuna had lost friends on the Mercy's hand. She had volunteered for this mission to honor their memory, not by seeking revenge, but by continuing their work of healing. Another doctor, J. Rim, entered the supply room. "Everything ready?" he asked. "As ready as we can be," Yuna replied. "I just hope we won't be needed much." Jay nodded. "It's strange, isn't it? Going into battle with hospital ships. That's what makes us different from the Raktar," Yuna said. "Even when we fight, we remember our duty to help the hurt and sick." Back on the Retribution, Admiral Lee called all ship captains to a final meeting before they arrived. On a large screen, she could see the faces of the 12 captains who led the fleet. "We are 1 hour from the Raktar home system," she said. "Our mission is clear. We will demand they surrender those responsible for the attack on the Mercy's hand. If they refuse, we will disable their defense systems and blockade their planet." "What if they fight back hard?" asked Captain Kim of the Swift Justice. "They will," Admiral Lee said. "But remember, we are not there to destroy them. We are there to show them our true strength, so they understand that attacking a hospital ship was a terrible mistake." She looked at each captain's face on the screen. "The Raktar must learn that humans value peace and healing above all. But when pushed too far, when the defenseless are attacked, we will respond with overwhelming force." "And if they surrender?" asked Captain Park of the Vigilant. "Then we will be merciful," Admiral Lee said. "That is also our way." The captains nodded. They understood the mission. "Return to your bridges," Admiral Lee ordered. "Prepare your crews. We exit faster than light travel in 58 minutes. As the screen went dark, Admiral Lee stood alone on the bridge of the Retribution. In less than an hour, they would reach the Raktar home world. In less than an hour, the greatest fleet Earth had ever sent to battle would reveal itself. She thought about the hospital ship, about the 512 lives lost. "They will answer for what they did," she whispered. "And they will learn who we truly are." Throughout the fleet, final preparations were made. Weapons were checked one last time. Armor was sealed. Fighters were fueled. Medical supplies were organized. The fleet of Fury was ready to bring justice to those who had broken the most sacred rule of war. The 15 ships of Earth's 5th Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Raktar home system. They appeared suddenly, like ghosts emerging from nowhere. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Lee watched as the star system appeared on the main screen. The yellow sun was bright in the center, with 7 planets circling it. The 3rd planet, the Raktar homeworld, glowed blue and green, much like Earth. They haven't seen us yet, said Captain Juan, checking the sensor readings. Our arrival was too quick for their warning systems. Admiral Lee nodded. How long until they notice us? Less than a minute, Captain Juan replied. Their sensor sweep is about to reach our position. Admiral Lee straightened her uniform. Open a channel to the Raktar High Command. Let's give them their chance. Officer Sun worked at her communication panel. Channel open, Admiral. You can speak now. Admiral Lee took a deep breath. This is Admiral Day Lee of the United Earth Defense Force. I am addressing the Raktar High Command. On the large screen, the face of a Raktar appeared. He had tough gray skin and small yellow eyes. This was Supreme Commander Kor, the leader of all Raktar forces. Humans, he growled. How did you reach our home system? What do you want? 6 days ago, your ships attacked the human hospital ship Mercy's Hand. Admiral Lee said, her voice strong and clear. You killed 512 innocent people, medical workers and patients who were not part of the war. The Raktar commander's face showed no regret. That ship was a spy vessel. It was not a real hospital ship. That is a lie, Admiral Lee replied. And you know it. We have proof that it was a true hospital ship. It sent clear medical signals. It had no weapons. She paused, then continued. The United Earth Defense Force demands that you surrender those responsible for this crime. They will face a fair trial for breaking the laws of war. Supreme Commander Kor laughed. It was a harsh sound. You come to our home system and make demands? You are weak humans. You waste resources trying to save the sick who should die naturally. Your mercy is your weakness. Admiral Lee's face remained calm. This is your only warning. Surrender those responsible, or we will take action. Your fleet is tiny, the Raktar commander said. We have 50 defense stations around our planet. We have 200 warships. You have brought... He looked at something off-screen. 15 ships? We will destroy you easily. I will ask one last time, Admiral Lee said. Will you surrender those responsible for attacking our hospital ship? Never, Supreme Commander Kor shouted. Prepare to die, humans. The screen went dark. Admiral Lee turned to Captain Juan. They have made their choice. Begin Operation Fury. Throughout the fleet, the order was passed. On the Indomitable, Commander Gill called to her pilots. Launch all fighters. 50 small fighter ships shot out from the carrier. Pilot Bo Ra felt her ship vibrate as it entered space. She checked her systems quickly. Stealth mode active, she said into her helmet mic. Raktar sensors can't see me now. The 50 fighters spread out, moving much faster than any fighters the Raktar had seen before. They headed toward the Raktar defense stations. On the Retribution, Admiral Lee watched as the first part of the plan began. The Raktar fleet is moving. Toward us, said Officer Sun. 200 ships, as they said. And our drop troops? Admiral Lee asked. Ready to launch, Captain Juan replied. In the launch bay of the Retribution, Colonel Min Yu and his soldiers were inside their drop pods. These small ships would take them past the Raktar fleet to important targets on the planet. Phase shift technology active, Min said to his troops through the comm system. Remember, the Raktar don't know about this. We'll be invisible to them. Drop pods launched, 200 of them shooting out from the Earthships. As they moved, they began to shimmer and then seemed to disappear. The phase shift technology moved them slightly out of normal space, making them impossible for Raktar sensors to detect. Supreme Commander Kor stood in the Raktar command center, watching as his fleet moved toward the human ships. This will be an easy victory, he said to his officers. Their fleet is small. Their ships are weak. Soon we will... He stopped as alarms began to sound. Supreme Commander, a Raktar officer shouted. Our defense stations are under attack. By what? Kor demanded. There are no human ships near them. Small fighters, the officer replied. They didn't show on our sensors until they were right on top of the stations. In space, Bo Ra's fighter raced toward a large Raktar defense station. She fired her weapons and bright blue energy beams shot out. They hit the station's main weapon systems. Target disabled, she reported. Moving to the next one. All around the Raktar planet, the same thing was happening. The human fighters, using stealth technology the Raktar had never seen before, were disabling the defense stations one by one. Back in the Raktar command center, more alarms were sounding. "Ground bases are reporting attacks," another officer shouted. "Human soldiers inside our bases." "Impossible," Supreme Commander Kor roared. "How did they get past our fleet?" The phase-shifted drop pods had landed at key military bases around the Raktar world. Colonel Min and his soldiers, in their advanced power armor, were disabling Raktar weapons and communication systems. "Target secured," Min reported as his team took control of a major Raktar communication center. "No casualties. Raktar soldiers contained but unharmed." Other teams reported similar successes. The power armor made the human soldiers faster and stronger than the Raktar, even with their natural armor, and the phase shift technology had allowed them to bypass all Raktar defenses. In space, the Raktar fleet finally reached the position of the Earth ships, but by then half of their defense stations were disabled, and key ground bases were under human control. "Fire all weapons," Supreme Commander Kor ordered. The Raktar ships fired, but something strange happened. Their energy beams and missiles seemed to curve around the Earth ships, missing them completely. "What is happening?" Kor demanded. On the Retribution, Admiral Lee watched as the advanced shield technology worked perfectly. "Return fire," she ordered. "Disable their weapon systems only." The Earth ships fired. Unlike the Raktar weapons, these hit their targets perfectly. The main guns of the Raktar ships went dark as they were disabled. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The Raktar fleet floated powerless in space. Their defense stations were disabled. Key bases on their planet were under human control. Supreme Commander Kor stared at the reports in shock. "How?" he asked. "How did they do this?" A human voice came over the comm system. It was Admiral Lee. "Supreme Commander Kor, your forces are defeated. Your world is blockaded. Now, we will talk." 3 days after the battle, Supreme Commander Kor stood in a large meeting room on the neutral space station Harmony. The station floated at the edge of the Raktar system, built many years ago for peace talks between different space-traveling peoples. Kor looked different now. His proud stance was gone. His yellow eyes no longer held the look of someone who thought he was stronger than everyone else. Next to him stood 5 other Raktar military leaders. Across the table sat Admiral Lee and representatives from the United Earth Defense Force. Behind them stood officials from the Galactic Council, the group that helped keep peace between all the space-traveling races. "The terms are clear," Admiral Lee said, looking at a document on the table. "The Raktar will admit their crime in attacking the hospital ship Mercy's Hand. They will pay support to the families of those who died, and they will allow Galactic Council observers on all their military ships to make sure they follow the rules of war." Supreme Commander Kor's face showed anger, but he didn't argue. "And if we agree to these terms?" "Then the Earth fleet will leave your system," Admiral Lee replied. "Your disabled ships and defense stations will be repaired, and we will return to the peace talks that were happening before this incident." Kor looked at the other Raktar leaders. They nodded slowly. "We agree to your terms," he said finally. "We will sign this peace document." As Kor picked up the pen to sign, he asked, "I must know one thing. How did you defeat us so easily? We thought we knew the limits of human technology." "Admiral," Lee's face remained calm. "For years we have held back in this war. We wanted peace, not total victory. But when you attacked a defenseless hospital ship, you crossed a line that could not be ignored." Supreme Commander Kor signed the document. So did Admiral Lee and the Galactic Council representatives. "You could have destroyed us completely," Kor said quietly. "Your ships, your weapon, they were far beyond what we thought possible." "Destruction was never our goal," Admiral Lee replied. "Even after what you did, we wanted justice, not revenge." Later that day, Colonel Min walked through the main square of the Raktar capital city. Earth soldiers in power armor stood guard at key points, but they were few in number. Most of the city was still run by Raktar police and officials. "Strange to walk freely here," said Sergeant Yoon, who walked beside him. "Just a week ago, this would have been enemy territory." They passed a building where Earth doctors were treating Raktar civilians. A line of Raktar waited outside, many looking unsure about being treated by humans. "That is the strangest thing of all," Min replied, nodding toward the medical center. "The Raktar killed our doctors and patients, and now our doctors are helping them. That's what makes us different from them," Yoon said. "That's what they didn't understand about us." As they watched, an older Raktar with an injured arm was helped inside by a human nurse. The Raktar looked surprised by the gentle treatment. "Maybe they're learning," Min said. On the Retribution, Admiral Lee met with Dr. Yuna. The hospital ships had been very busy since the battle ended. "How are the wounded?" Admiral Lee asked. "All Earth soldiers with serious injuries are stable," Dr. Yuna replied. "We've also treated over 300 Raktar soldiers and civilians." Admiral Lee nodded. "And the Raktar doctors? Are they working with you?" "They were surprised when we offered to help," Dr. Yuna said. "At first, they refused, but when they saw how we treated the first wounded Raktar soldiers, they changed their minds. Now they work beside us, learning our methods." Admiral Lee walked to the window. From here, she could see the Raktar planet below. "Do you think they understand now why what they did was so wrong?" "Some do," Dr. Yuna said. "I heard one Raktar doctor say he couldn't believe we would help them after what they did to the Mercy's hand. He asked me why we bothered to save people who might just fight us again." "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that's what doctors do. We don't ask if someone deserves to be saved. We just save them. That's what makes us human." 1 week later, most of the Earth fleet was preparing to leave the Raktar system. The peace agreement was working. Raktar ships were being repaired. Galactic Council observers were taking their positions on Raktar vessels. On the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Lee gave her final orders. "The Guardian and the Protector will remain here to watch over the peace process," she said. "The rest of the fleet will return to Earth space." Captain Huan nodded. "And the hospital ships?" "One will stay to continue helping the Raktar wounded," Admiral Lee replied. "The others will come with us." As the ships prepared to leave, Admiral Lee received a message. A Raktar transport was requesting permission to dock with the Retribution. On board was Supreme Commander Kor himself. When Kor arrived on the bridge, he looked uncomfortable. Raktar rarely visited human ships. "Supreme Commander," Admiral Lee greeted him. "What brings you here?" Kor held out a small box. "A gift. For the families of those who died on the Mercy's hand." Admiral Lee took the box. Inside was a crystal carved with 512 small stars, one for each person who had died. "It is a Raktar memorial stone," Kor explained. "We make them to honor those we have wronged." The bridge was silent. "The attack on your hospital ship was—" Kor seemed to struggle with the words. "It was wrong. I see that now." Admiral Lee nodded. "Thank you for this. It will mean a lot to the families." Kor turned to leave, then stopped. "Your people are strange to us, Admiral. You have the power to destroy, but you choose to heal. You defeated us easily, but then you helped our wounded. That is who we are." Admiral Lee replied simply. "I begin to see that," Kor said. "And I think perhaps we have much to learn from humans." After Kor left, Admiral Lee stood by the window holding the memorial stone. Below, the Raktar world turned slowly. "Captain," she said to Huan, "set course for Earth." As the Retribution moved away from the Raktar planet, Admiral Lee thought about everything that had happened. The attack on the Mercy's hand had been a terrible crime. Earth had responded with overwhelming force, but in the end they had also responded with mercy. "They fired on a hospital ship," she said quietly. "And they learned who we truly are." Throughout the galaxy, the story spread. The story of how the Raktar had broken the most sacred rule of war, and how Earth had answered with a fleet of fury. But also how in victory, the humans had shown mercy. It became a lesson to all who heard it. Humanity valued peace and healing above all. But when pushed too far, when the innocent were harmed, they would respond with unmatched power. And even in their righteous anger, they would not forget their duty to heal. That was the true strength of humanity, not just their hidden technology or powerful weapons, but their unbreakable spirit, capable of both righteous fury and boundless compassion. The end.